Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. Tonight, we're doing our monthly show on UBI, Unconditional Basic Income. And I have my co-hosts and co-producers with me, Miss Diana Blackwell, Harlem community activist and resident leader, and Enno Schmidt, author and professor from the University of Freiburg in Germany. Welcome back, both you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So before we came on air, we were kind of talking about some recent developments, and maybe just by way of introduction, some folks who haven't maybe heard any of our previous shows on UBI, maybe Enno, you can give our audience a brief introduction as to what is UBI and what's it all about.
Well, first, sorry to say that I'm a professor at the university. I'm a research assistant there, but I made this referendum in Switzerland and the films about basic income. So, well, yeah, the idea of a basic income, unconditional basic income, I think some of the audience of your show already know a lot about that. And the recent situation is in the United States, and it's in other countries the same, that with this COVID pandemic, the debate and discussion about an unconditional basic payment for the people, to reset the basic payment from being delivered by employment to being delivered by the state as a security for your basic needs, is in the discussion and rised up. And as you know, in California, they started with a program to give people an unconditional basic income. At first, specific groups, specific kinds of parts of the population, but with the goal to spread it to everybody. And what we said just before, Diana and me in the discussion, so that I said, look, the one is an unconditional basic income is a totally rethinking of, at least at the end, finally everything. You have to rethink about what is the value of work. Is work really, for me, egoism, that I get money, or is work in fact that I do things for others, what it is in a labor sharing world? We are all working for each other. So what is with money? Is it like gold? Is it something in your hands, or is it a right, the right to live, giving the right to live for the exchange of goods and services to the people? So we have to rethink so many things from the past, and also our conception of work, which is partly still slavery. So do what you are paid for. That means you are not a human being, you are not self-decided, you are not able to decide what you want to do and do it and that you do it by your own understanding and your own willingness to do things for others, but because I say to you, and payment is like a part-time slavery, sometimes, not always, but sometimes. So there are so many conceptions in our brain, in our behavior, our unconditional levels, which come up with the idea of an unconditional basic income. And the discussion about it is so important, to talk about what is it when I appreciate and value all the people around me, also those I hate, I don't like, but they are human beings. You know, this is in a development and progress from human rights, democracy, to the next step of development in our society, to an unconditional basic income. And the other side is that you can also misuse it. So you can say, you can create need and hardship for the people, which happened by the pandemic, for example, for many, many people, and that's not over. So even if COVID, the first version, is over, but there are multiple other versions of it. And I think, that will not end so quickly. And with that, there's this threat of a virus, the threat of lockdowns, the threat of so many new things, and people follow it. And you can say, okay, we give an unconditional payment, not high enough to live from, but because people are in need. And then you can misuse it and put some conditions on it. For example, yeah, that you are under control, that your behavior should be such and such, and that the wages can fall down because you need some money to live, but you have already something. You can split the society with an unconditional basic income, which is then in truth not unconditional basic income. The definition of an unconditional basic income is high enough to live from without need, without hardship, and individual, and for everybody. So regardless whether you're rich or poor, because all this kinds of judgment about people, good family, bad family, skilled, not skilled, nice, ugly, or whatever. This is not in the basic income. Rich or poor is not in the basic income. The basic income, the idea is you are an individual human being like me. That's where we all are the same, at the same level, and that is a high level as a human being. Then we are totally different in our individual way of living, skills, wishes, and so on. But the basis is human being, and that is a step in. So, in my understanding, that is totally necessary in the 21st century, like a new enlightenment, like we have had it in the 17th or 18th century. Because we are going to a century where digitization, platform economy, all this is growing, growing, growing. We have a new kind of feudalism by all those who take all the profit, which was more spread in the society when we have had more handcraft, more small companies, and so on. And you see, COVID pandemic is the death for so many more small companies. And the big ones, the digital ones, they become even more strong. And we have a kind of globalization and the idea of one world government, which is forced by the COVID pandemic, because we can say without one world government, we cannot fight against pandemics, we cannot fight against climate change. You know, there's one direction. And this direction is not necessarily the appreciation of the individual human being as finally a spiritual being, because what is a being? You know, this is not a being, and this is not a being. What is a being? What is a human being and not a human doing or a human function? So we are used to think in functions. How valuable are you because you do this or that, or you are needed for this or that? And the unconditional basic income says, no, it's not about your function. It's not about how valuable I judge you. It is because of your being. And that rises up the question of what is a being? What is a human being? What is the difference between a human being and what a robot can do in 50 years, for example? When a robot can maybe do all the functions better than a human being, what is the difference between a human being and a machine that can function better, that can be more intellectual? So this is a question. I think we are in a time where we have to answer the question, what is specifically a human being? Is it what science, natural science is saying, that this is a machine reacting on with social patterns and so on? We have to think about that. And that is the important point, because, you know, we can fight against poverty, fight for this and that. And this has happened the last 100 years. But I think we need to do this effort to touch the real hot questions, which we mostly avoid to talk about or think about. The question of sense, for example. What is a sense in your life? So existence has been over a long time that you have shelter, you have enough to eat, you have your basic needs. That's existence. I think today existence is much more the question, can I feel in the way that what I'm doing is meaningful, makes some sense or not? Because we have no lack of all the goods and services which people have had in the past. This is no longer reality. Reality is a question about what is my life? Where is the meaning of my life? For what I'm here? And all those questions. And to help each other much more on the level of human being and human being, and not so much by all the productive lines which are taken over more and more by machines. So we have work more than we can do, but this work is changing. The whole idea of work is changing from do what you are paid for to the other side. People are doing what they are aware where the need is, what is necessary to do, where they themselves decide what is the environment I want to be in, what fits to me, and what I think is the most important to do. So I think this is a change, and it's always a development from the past, from abolishing slavery, which is not finished. It's still running. We abolished it in some time, but still it's always still today. And I think in that way, we have to understand that we are in an always ongoing process where we are always fighting for more humanity, more civilization, more rationality, and more, let's say, progress in the way which fits with human beings and humankind. And on the other side, there's always this interest to pull that down in misusing the things like banks, so for banks is a great idea, stock markets are a great idea, everything is a great idea at first, and then it can turn around and put people in dependence and so on. So we are always in that fight. That's my understanding. And that even if you are thinking about an unconditional basic income for everybody, regardless whether you're rich or poor or whatever, employed or unemployed, individual, for each person, not the household. And some people then think, wow, this is paradise. Everything is different. This is paradise. But no, it will not happen that way. What will happen is if you understand the idea and it touches your heart and you feel, wow, this is right, this is value, this is what human beings need, then you have to fight for ever. You have to fight work for it, to do it. Because reality is not that an ideal comes to earth like the ideal is. An ideal
I have two questions when I can.
Please.
Okay.
Sorry for talking so long.
That's okay. First question is timeline on machines taking over. You mentioned that in your talk. Where do you see the machines really taking over? Because after the pandemic, no, I can't say it's not after, but because we seem to be going to round 4, but there are a lot of jobs now listed, a lot of jobs from low-end jobs to high-end jobs. They're listed daily. So when we talk about machines, a lot of talk, even in the UBI circle, say it's not here yet, it's not near yet, so we don't have to be concerned about it yet. It is a future thing. So my first question is timeline for the machines to really take over. And then I'd like you to comment on a quote. The quote is, welfare is paying people to do nothing, and basic income is paying people to do something. So yeah, so if you wouldn't mind commenting on both of those two. Okay.
So the first, I know there is research and papers and so on which are saying that around about 30% of the today jobs could be replaced by software and digital programs and machines. They are just, people keep on holding on their jobs to give people an income. So because we are thinking you need to work to get an income, many jobs which are no longer necessary are saved because people need an income. And you have this development that there are some more and more bullshit jobs. That is the work of David Graeber in his book. So that there are jobs and they don't make any sense. And the people themselves say that. And these are not the low paid jobs. That's often good paid jobs, but more so that some bosses have a surrounding and can say, wow, I have 20 employees on my level and so on. So the threat is for me that jobs are given just to keep people busy, to hold them away from thinking about your life. Keep them busy, because we have this ideology that to get an income, you have to work. So give the people jobs, then they can get an income. And by this way, waste the lifetime of those people by unnecessary work. And what I said is 30% of the today jobs could be abolished immediately, doesn't matter. And you saw in the pandemic, so many people couldn't work longer on, but haven't had we a lack of service, a lack of goods? No, we haven't had that. You know, it could be much more if people could think an unconditional basic income and could think that you don't need always to have an employment or to work in that way, what the description of work is, to get an income. So income is to buy things. Work is to do good things for others. That's the right definition. And you know, the communistic states like Russia and the DDR, they failed economically because they couldn't think apart income and work. All people have had a job. All people were employed to get the money. And then this is poisoning the economy, because they did meaningless things. It was really crazy what they did sometimes. And there was no understanding of economy, that economy is not to employ people. Economy is to do things for others, as I said. And those who are not employed in companies and so on, they can decide by themselves much better what is where I'm valuable, where I'm needed. And you know, in Harlem, for example, all the people, if the eyes could open up and the curtain of I have to earn money is away, they would see so many things where they could do very important things, where they are asked and needed by others, or what they do by themselves as creating new things. We are really with black paper for the eyes because of this ideology. You have to get a job and earn money, otherwise you don't get the right to live. And precisely, an income is the right to live. Whether it is written in the Constitution or not, that doesn't matter so much. The real thing is, you have an income, then you have the right to live. If you don't have an income, you don't have it. And to make this condition, you have to do what others are saying, or you have to do something what is whatever just to get the money, to get the right to live, is unhuman. It is against dignity. It is against the Constitution of the United States, because it's written in the right to pursue for happiness. And what is it? It's not to become rich. It is to live your own life, whether this is full of suffer or not, but that is your life, and that is happiness. So to do those things that fits to you. And an unconditional basic income is doing it. I think the timeline is, if you are following just the possibilities of technique, the timeline is that in 10 years, half of the today jobs are no longer necessary, and much more new jobs become necessary. And people have to get the consciousness and the sensibility to see what it is. That's what I'm thinking. It is artificially, what is the word, made longer. The term is artificially made longer because people cannot think what is the reality, and they remain and stick on old behaviors, and so they make it longer the time that people are kept busy. But that's no work. And the second question, Diana, was again, sorry.
Oh, the second question was just to comment on that statement.
Ah, yes.
Yes, which basically says that, you know, I want to go back and just read it.
Welfare is paying people to do nothing.
Yeah, and you know, welfare is, you know, is what they're saying. What welfare is? Welfare is. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the quote again. I went down for something. Welfare is paying people to do nothing, and basic income is paying people to do anything.
Right, and that is because welfare is linked with paid jobs, and welfare says as long as you get welfare payments, you are not you're permitted to do something, because if you're doing something, you cannot get welfare. You get welfare only if you don't earn any money, and work is linked by the understanding of those people to get money. But in real, 55% of all work done is unpaid. done, mostly done by women. It's also, the society is just not thinking about that. More work is done unpaid, and I think it's more important for our cohesion, our living together. So in voluntary work, work in the households with children, in social relationships, and so on. This is all work unpaid. But if we are talking about work, we are also always talking about paid work. But paid work is a majority of the work which is done. You can say labor in work and make that definition. So yeah, an unconditional basic income enables people to do those things that are really fruitful, effective, valuable. And also in companies, I think in companies there are so many people not satisfied by the work, doing things like, yeah, not in the best way they can. With an unconditional basic income that focus on your self-responsibility will become much more hot. And you will think about what I'm doing, for whom, for what. So all the waste that is produced today will be minimized, and there will be much more effective and needed things be produced or be created as services or whatever, because people are much more free to see what is needed, what it is about, what do the others need. Today it is narrowed on what is paid. So for what did you get money? And I think we need a society, this will remain, of course, paying money and all that and getting a high income, this is fine. But the basis is for everybody, if you want to, if you are strong enough, or if you are sensible enough, you can do things that are not paid but valuable. And you can build up new companies, new kinds of companies, and then, for example, getting rich or whatever. And I think getting rich is then no longer for many people, no longer so interesting. Getting rich is a religious relict. So getting rich means then I'm on the holy power to do everything I want. And that has a religious touch. So I become divine because I have the power over everything. I can do what I want. And but this is not the real world. You can do what you want immediately. And if you have to become rich in before, then look what people are doing when they are rich. They don't do things that are so interesting. I think there's much more old belief, old religions in this capitalistic ideologies than the people know. And yeah, as I said, becoming rich is more close to the Holy Spirit or whatever. And this is a deeper feeling. That's not what they say, but that is, and that is why we are judging people by how much money do they have. So then they are successful when they have a lot of money. But that's not the truth. For the world, it is not interesting how much money you are earning. It's interesting what you are doing for others. How do other people or other beings, animals or trees or the environment or the piece of art or your neighbor or whatever is feeling? What is your impact on others? That's interesting for the world. What is your impact on others? Not whether you become rich or not. That is totally dust. It is nothing. Finally.
Are you aware that the U.S. is experiencing its first basic income, guaranteed income, through what we call the child tax credit? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, we talked about that in one of the recent shows. I was a little bit skeptical when I read the papers about that, what it is. Can you say a word again?
Sure. Well, at this point, up until the end of December, every family in America, whether they've paid taxes or not, they can register their child, will be able to get $300 per child, free, no condition.
Per month?
Per month.
For how long?
Right now, it's just until the end of December.
Okay.
So if you have 5 children, you get 5 times 3. I'm bad at math. Was that 1,500?
Okay.
1,500 a month. If you have not paid your taxes, it actually for those who have paid taxes, it's already in their bank. It arrived this, I think, yesterday or last week. They actually sent it just the same way they receive their regular tax refunds. For those who have not paid taxes for whatever reason, there's a number you can call and register so that they can identify. They already know the children are existing because of the schools and they have to report them. But it's for every person that has a child, I think up into the age of, I don't think it's 16, 18, I think it might be 16 or 17.
Ah, yeah.
So it is, there's no condition.
Yeah. In Germany, we
There's
have that too. You get for each child 300 euros, something like that.
Okay.
And you get it as long, you get it also if your child is then studying, as long as he or she is at the university. I think that is, yeah, that is the first example for an unconditional basic income, of course.
Yes.
Right. And this is regardless whether you are rich or poor in Germany too.
And it's not
get it. Everybody gets it.
Right. So that is the first time the United States has ever done that. And again, it ends in October. They're also going to do something with the food system because a lot of children don't have food, and therefore they're going to give them equivalent to what they would pay for lunch and give it to the parents to give to the children. Unconditional.
Yeah. Oh, well, I have a question. I saw new films about China and so on, and the rise of China and so on. And I thought, okay, the United States has been the leading country since Second World War, latest. They dominated culture worldwide by Hollywood and the films and the kind of thinking. And of course, with this huge, big army and all that army bases all over the world. So like you, Diana, lived in that.
Also, so the internet too, largely US.
Yeah, and the internet. So, and I thought, okay, but there's a weakness of the United States, which can be very important. The weakness is the division of society. That there are so many people living in the United States, like in the third world. And that is really bad. That is a weakness, and that could be dangerous also for this claim of being the world power #1 for the United States, because a country where only some people very rich and so many millions are living in desperate situations, that can't be a leading country, because a leading country needs also the ethic aspect and an appreciation that, okay, even if you do bad things, but in the center is you are staying for democracy, you are staying for specific understanding of life and so on. And then I thought, okay, if there is something in the future between China and the United States, and China is looking that everybody has a good life. So I don't appreciate that way of life they are looking for, but I thought it could be necessary for the United States to work hardly on that very evil, bad things, to have so many people in poverty. What do you think about that?
Diana, before you answer, let me just say, this is WHCR 90.3, the voice of Harlem. You're listening to Community and Technology with Diana Blackwell, Enno Schmidt, and Stu Reid. And we're talking about unconditional basic income. And Diana, I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's all right. That's okay. Our friend Polly, who isn't here today, miss you, Polly, always said, poverty is a business.
Yeah.
And if it's a business, you're going to have someone making money off of it.
Right.
So somebody has to be rich and be the head. Somebody has to be poor and be beneath.
Yeah.
So that is my comment, and that's my agreement. Until the United States realizes poverty is not a business, that everybody has the right to live, and we need money to live. that is something that we must fight against. So,
That's
that
right. It's simply like that. People
yes,
need money to live. So
yes,
where is the need of any discussion? There's no need. It's inevitable. It's obvious. People need money to live. So give the people the money to live. What want you to do with the people? Why do you want to decide about the life about others? That's a simple idea of an unconditional basic income. But for me, really, if it is a question about who is leading globally, then it's a question of ethic. It's
yeah,
not just a question of power. It's not a question of military power or something like that. Who has the ethic? Who is leading in a vision of human being and life? And so in that regard, I think an unconditional basic income, which sounds for some people like a utopian, and we can talk about it tomorrow, it can be very, very, very center important as a core issue for who is leading and what is leading and which country is at the top. I think it is much more strong and vibrant than some people are thinking, who are thinking, oh yeah, it's for the poor, we will not have it, we have to fight for it. I think it is this, it makes a decision. And I know, for example, that the Chinese government is thinking about that. Of course, they are thinking, I don't know that exactly, but I guess more thinking about that, how to use that to benefit those who behave in the mainstream, and to punish those that they get no basic income or little. So to control and to steer the people, you can use it like that. And I think that is more the Chinese mentality, to hire up those who are like the Communist Party wants them, and to put them those down. Yeah, I think it is underestimated. The topic is underestimated. But if you are thinking an unconditional basic income, and that's the same for everybody, the audience, everybody, just think about, well, it is unconditional. It is high enough to live from. I don't know what it is in the United States, $2,000 or whatever. It is not to punish you. It's not a penalty. It's not saying you are unworthy, you get this welfare, and then see by the little amount of money how bad you are and take care that you get a job. That's not an unconditional basic income. We are used by welfare that it has to hurt you. It has to be bad. It has to create a very stressful life situation. No, an unconditional basic income says, welcome. Welcome in our society. You are valuable. You are a human being. You are like me. You are part of the community. So this is a basis we are giving to all the people, the right to live in practice. And this is unconditional. And this is, of course, also for those you don't like. So that's challenging you to see, okay, this is also for those I don't like. It is because we are all human beings in that society. We are all part of the society. And we give each other the hand at the first moment. So like you welcome a baby, we welcome each other in our community, on earth, in our society, in our economy. And then you do what you can do best. So what will happen then? And I think people, if everybody who is not afraid and not too weak to let that idea coming in your understanding. So many people are rejecting that because they are afraid, because, but let that in. If you are brave enough to think this idea and feel what is it doing with you, then you feel a strong power and a light, and that hires your understanding. Then you see, okay, I can be like I am. I don't have to be like all the others are telling me how I have to be. I can do what I think is the important thing. And this, what I want to say is, this is strong in your soul, in your feeling. It makes something with you. And then you might think, okay, but that's very private, or that's just me. No, on the other hand, I think this will be so central, important for the future society. Like, for example, the new book of Klaus Schwab, who is leading the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland. And he wrote the book, The New Reset. He's always writing books every year, I think, but The New Reset. So this is Corona pandemic and how we now have to change the economy to more social, society to be more social, more sustainable, all these good ideas.
Mhm.
And of course, he's writing about basic income, unconditional basic income. And then, interesting enough, the last 2 points in his catalog of, I guess, 70 points or so is, yeah, and technical improvement of people, so transhumanism, posthumanism, and then there comes an idea in it where you see, okay, but it's not about humans, isn't it? It is about better function. It is about a society where the people are happy or lucky or happy and healthy and so on, like Bill Gates is talking about that. But on the other hand, I don't want to live in a world created by Bill Gates because I miss an understanding of individual human being, which is also suffering, which is also illness, and all that stuff, which is to develop from inside, from you in the future, and not to be developed by a nice, a nice blue pill surrounding. So, and I think this is also, this is the world we are living in. These are the core questions for me, and the most important issues, because this is what it is about. Also, by the corona pandemic, it is about changing society, blocking social contacts, creating a more digital world. Yeah, and concentrating the power to big platforms and so on. And what are we doing with that? How are we acting for that? What is our relationship to diseases or to a virus and so on, and to death? All these important questions are coming up. And how far do we believe the leaders or not? So what is it right to do in such a situation? What is it doing with us? So not just to being afraid about the virus, but also looking, and how is it changing the society? And that's not necessarily the virus, but this is more the lockdown or the measures we are living in now. So I think what I want to say is we are in a development and we have to be aware of it.
There's
Yeah,
a quote by, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of, one of the threads that I keep hearing, as you speak, it sounds to me like we are really in the process of a spiritual transformation, that folks are beginning to, and hopefully more so, begin to understand the connectedness of each other with other people and with the planet and the resources of the planet. And that as we begin to really embrace that, UBI will maybe even naturally flow, but it'll certainly make a lot more sense to a lot of folks as we become more just sensitive to the fact that we are our brother's keeper and that we have to look out for each other, otherwise that we're all doomed, and that it really is one planet and one people here. And I don't think a government can make that happen. I think it really is, and this is something you've talked about before, and I've heard this from you, that it's got to be personal growth and personal development. And again, I hear the spiritual piece. I hear when you talked about, the worship of money, that that's a doomed faith, a doomed system. And one of the issues that I see with America, you talked about the problems here, is that we don't have a strong spiritual base. I think individuals do, but as a culture, it's kind of spiritually bankrupt, and we need to reclaim that because it's there. I know it's in the hearts of people, but we need to reclaim that as a people and as a culture. And it's just, my sense listening to you is that as that begins to happen, UBI will emerge as a strong candidate for the way we need to organize things. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, and vice versa, UBI is promoting and is energizing this change. On the one hand, you need change, and on the other hand, but the unconditional basic income is something like such an energizer. It's a push, It is an awakeness in this change. And I agree absolutely with you. And I think it's always difficult to talk about that. I think the one important point in this understanding is that development is done by the individual human beings. Development is not simply to have a healthy, good life, a comfortable life, a convenient life. So a convenient life is not necessarily what is a development from you yourself. And there is this mixed up. So of course, everybody wants to have a good life. That's not the question. But for me, the difference between, for example, a word of Klaus Schwab, for example, where I miss the human aspect, this is because I miss the aspect that everybody develops by himself or herself, that everybody knows by himself or herself better what's to do. And that it is not about the perfect circumstances, the perfect environment, but about the ability and opportunity for everybody to do from your inside. This is freedom. It's the aspect of real individual freedom to progress. And not only to say, I create a good world for you, but then do what fits in my world. And that is always what I think by all the engineers of Silicon Valley. They are good guys, but they are techniques, and they create models, perfect models for the people. I don't want to live in that. I want to live my life. You know, it's difficult to say, but I think it's an important point, because it's a little bit dangerous when people are talking about the perfect world, but then you are in a perfect world, there is no freedom. And that's not really, I want to create the world, you know, from my perspective. And that is what an unconditional basic income gives to the people. And as you said, that's very interesting for me. I appreciate so much, on the one hand, the United States, because it is based on the spiritual understanding, even if those the founding fathers had have slaved and all that stuff, but there was a basis. So the Constitution of the United States was really a result of enlightenment, and I think it was truly to say, okay, this is the basis, this idea, and it is a spiritual idea, is the basis of the country. That was different from the monarchs, which has had a basis which is at the end from a divine order. So the king is by the divine and so on. That was done by humans and spiritual, an idea, let's say an idea. But as you said, I think, and maybe many people forgot that. They forgot. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
And an unconditional basic income is a reminder.
Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. Diana, I think I cut you off. You're about to.
No, that was okay. That was okay. But when I was reading something and I really jumped down a little further, and since we're getting ready to wrap it up, I might as well wrap it up with this quote. And it says, a world where no one has to prove their right to live anymore through a traditional employment, which means that it says that we can do more with our lives to feel self-esteemed, accomplished, and pride than bringing home a paycheck. And that's what I think it's all about.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely, self-esteem. So I want to say one word more when we come to an end, to avoid misunderstandings. The basic income, an unconditional basic income, is not changing so much for everybody. Many people which are earning a lot, for those people, that is not an opportunity to fall down to just having a basic income. So for many people, nothing will change. And many people I talked about, and this is really many, many said, you know, if there's an unconditional basic income, I will continue working what I'm doing, because first, I want to have much more money. Second, my self-esteem and my understanding of myself is that I studied, I have my team, I have my responsibility, I'm important, and so on. I will never do anything different just because the basic income is unconditional. You know, that is for many people. just to say that in the reality, a universal basic income will support and give energy for rethinking, for more consciousness, more sensibility, and for those people who want to change things, for those people who say, well, even if I don't earn money, I want to do this because I see this is the most important. The society will not be so different, because for many people, as I said, it is not for all people. And it is not easy to live just from a basic income when you have a credit because you have a big house and 2 cars and whatever, and then falling down to a basic income. So that's not an opportunity for many, many people. And for many people, of course, the goal is, and what they like is to earn money and so on. This is not changing. So like the people today, they all want to have more and being better. Just to have that in mind, so that it's not just what is the name, fairy telling. It's not just a story. It's not in a utopia. Everything is different. We are living in a paradise.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. That just to add that, so that people don't think, oh, this is very unreal, or this is everything is different. No, it is possible. It is a shift, a paradigm shift. It is changing consciousness. It gives new opportunities, but it is not a break in the society. It is somehow, yes, but it can be implemented. It is then very soon we will use it. It will be very soon so normal for us, like democracy was normal for us after a certain period of time. It will go quickly that we will have different problems, and an unconditional basic income, so the people will ask, oh, grandma, you are coming from a time where there was no basic income, unconditional basic income. What an awful time. How could you survive? For example, that's what I want to say. It is a step in history. It will happen. And we have just to take care that it happens with some understanding of what it is about, and not for pressing people, controlling people, and to take control over them. So that is, I guess, that is more the fight. It will come in either case.
Diana, you have some final words for our listeners.
No, it was very enlightening today. I really appreciate the just the information as we're going forward here in Harlem, preparing people for it. We're going to get it. We're going to have it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Diana Blackwell, Harlem leader and activist, and Enno Schmidt, renowned expert on unconditional basic income, for our conversation today. It's been really lively. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Stu.
Okay.
Thanks, Diana.
Absolutely.
Good night.
Thank you
Okay,
both.
see you soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
This is WHCR 90.3 FM in Harlem, the voice of Harlem. You've been listening to Community and Technology with Stu Reid, Diana Blackwell, and Enno Schmidt. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.
Good night, all.
Good night.